Anyways, what you got today? What you think?
Well, I sent a video to you yesterday, watched it, and then we came across some pretty interesting information because we started reaching out to some of our contacts on our end to try to not verify because he did very good verification on his own, but to try to dig a little bit deeper into what he did because it was quite interesting on what he found. So I don't want to steal his content. I want to give him credit where credit is due, but we got it from the YouTube channel Trigger Smart. Okay. Real knowledgeable dude. He actually dug up some pretty great stuff. So he's been doing a lot of great work in kind of going through the whole Charlie Kirk assassination narrative, and kind of like us and a lot of great channels poking a lot of holes in the Fed narrative that does not add up in a lot of ways, right? But
Mhm.
guy on Trigger Smart broke down the security detail that was working for Charlie during his assassination. And apparently, after he died, after he was shot, and they were going through everything at the time, there was a interview that I didn't see at the time with his prior security group that ran his security for 7 years, basically at the beginning of Turning Point until 2022 when
Yeah.
his when the security team that was working at the time of the assassination took over. Okay. Now, the security group that was working prior to that, from the start of Charlie Kirk to 2022, was Schaefer Security Group, who the owner and CEO is Greg Schaefer. Now, you're the one that told me Schaefer Security Group is top tier, hot shit. They know their stuff.
Yeah,
They've
they're
been
good.
around now, granted, it's not like they've been around for ages because they got their start right around the same time that Charlie Kirk came around. But
Mhm.
again, even from that time till now, they're still top tier stuff.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
mean,
they've got a really good reputation. Really good reputation.
yeah.
And
Then guy on Trigger Smart broke down to when uh Greg Schaefer, when Schaefer Security Group lost the contract in 2022 to Integrity Security Solutions, which is quote unquote a subsidiary of Rockhouse Integrity Group, kind of the same thing, but it's Rockhouse Integrity Group, and then Integrity Security Solutions, they fall into that group, right? But the CEO of that is Brian Harpole. Now, we've seen Brian Harpole. They got interviewed by
Mhm.
Sean Ryan, and he
Yeah,
was the guy. He was on the ground when, of course, right there when Charlie was assassinated, and he was doing the whole first aid and whatnot. Right? He was in
didn't get his
the
hands bloody, but yeah.
yeah, he was in the gray. He was in the gray colored shirt right there, standing up. I think it was front right of Charlie. So then, but another thing about Greg Schaefer, real quick, is Greg Schaefer was not only providing as a security group, he was also working as the security director for TP USA and providing private security for Charlie Kirk. But as a security director part time for TP USA, he was a contract hire part time during that time while doing full time security with his company, Schaefer Security Group, for Charlie Kirk, right?
Yeah.
During that time from 2015 to 2022 to late 2022. Now, in February, specifically February 2022, Dan Flood was brought on full-time employee, not as a contract hire like Greg Schaefer, was brought on as a full-time employee as the Turning Point USA security director, okay, in February 2022. Then late 2022 is when the contract for Schaefer Security was dropped, and then Rockhouse Integrity Group in with the subsidiary of Integrity Security Solutions, took over the full-time security contract for Charlie Kirk in TPUSA from Brian Harpole in late 2022. Okay, and that's when Schaefer Security Group lost the contract that they've had for the entire time for Charlie Kirk, because it was the sole security for Charlie Kirk his entire career. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, here is what Trigger Smart pointed out that was very um, shady. And when you and I talked about this is where possibilities of and possible allegations of corporate espionage could have played into this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, this is all surmising on our part. This is all alleged. We have no proof of this. This is just from our outside looking in, because it's just, this doesn't seem right. Okay, we have no proof of this. This is all alleged, and this is all our opinion. We want to put that out there first and foremost. So Brian Harpole, the CEO of Rockhouse Integrity Group and Integrity Security Solutions, and Dan Flood, for the new security director for TPUSA, both worked for Schaefer Security Group for almost the entire time for Greg Schaefer during the contract hire for Charlie Kirk at TPUSA for TPUSA. Now, in February of 2022, when Dan Flood was brought on as TPUSA director full-time, replacing Greg Schaefer's part-time contract hire, that gave him advanced internal knowledge of contract dealings and how much they were paying for security for Schaefer Security Group. That's where we say that's shady, because now he could give information to his best friend, Brian Harpole, because Greg Schaefer said that Brian Harpole and Dan Flood were best friends while serving for him as Schaefer Security Group. Because then Brian Harpole comes in and undercuts Schaefer Security Group to win the contract in late 2022, because Dan Flood had already been there since February, early 2022, and takes over the contract and undercuts Greg Schaefer. And even Greg Schaefer identifies this as, mentioned this and described this action as a betrayal, saying that Flood and Harpole stabbed him in the back by undercutting his firm to snatch the TPUSA contract. That's what Trigger Smart pointed out. And that's when I also said he noted that Flood and Harpole were best friends on his protection team for Charlie Kirk, working at SSG, Schaefer Security Group. So that's where we're like, holy shit. Did Flood give privileged information to Harpole to make sure that he won the contract and beat Schaefer's bid? Because, I mean, you have an insanely highly experienced, qualified security firm that has protected Charlie Kirk for 7 years and TPUSA events. And then you have these guys that worked for him come out of nowhere and steal this contract. And then what happens 3 years later?
Real quick. So you saw that the contract was given to Harpole in late 2022.
Yeah, that's what it said, late 2022.
Here's the weird thing about
Dan
that.
Flood started his position as security director February 2022.
Here's the weird thing about that. The formation date, so the incorporation date for Rockhouse is May of 2023.
The formation of their business corp.
Yeah. And he did it as a private LLC in Texas. Formation date May 2023.
For Rockhouse Integrity Group.
Yeah, Rockhouse Integrity Group, doing DBA Integrity Security Solutions. So they got the contract before they even were before the formation.
So they were doing whatever they could to win this contract without even a solid business set up. Essentially, our opinion on the situation based on public information that we can find.
Yeah. So here's a couple of my problems with the situation. Is you had Harpole and what was the other dickhead's name?
Dan Flood.
Dan Flood. You had uh, well, one's pool, one's a flood. I'm just gonna call them the Water Brothers. Fucking the Water Brothers here.
Watergate.
Fuck. The Water Brothers here, with them working for Schaefer, we don't know how much of pricing was discussed prior, how much internal knowledge, all that good shit.
Yeah.
They could have potentially seen a lot. Then, especially with one of the Flood brothers going to work for,
Yeah.
or one of the Water brothers going to work for TPUSA, then he gets to see all the internal
Yeah.
pricing documents. He can pass everything right over to fucking Harpole and tell him exactly where he needs to be to undercut everyone. The problem with that all this is there's no competition in that market. You are, reducing your quality of operation,
Yeah.
and because here's the thing, if fucking they didn't, if it wasn't even incorporated, it wasn't even started, they essentially set up a fucking QuickBooks, made a couple bids, sent them over with whatever it was. They didn't have the assets, they didn't have the personnel, they didn't have the fucking training, they didn't have anything.
Because then you also have to think about this. If they, so you have based on what you're looking up on public knowledge, on public information, the corporation wasn't formed until you said May 2023, right?
Yeah, May 2023.
Okay. And the contract was awarded, again, based on public knowledge, late 2022.
Mm-hmm.
If, say, Charlie or someone in executive positions at TPUSA was given, like, quote unquote, official paperwork showing that this was, an official setup type company, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, just say they were given what they led to believe and assumed was all set up.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have to assume that Flood and Harpole were defrauding TPUSA at the moment just to win a contract.
Absolutely, because there could have been no due diligence made. Like, you couldn't do the proper vetting process.
Because at that point you're trusting your security director to have done that.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of your security director.
Yeah, and then that being his best friend. Here's the thing: going forward, there's too much of a conflict of interest. Every little fuck up, every little thing, it's just like, let's sweep it under the rug. Hey, buddy, never happened. We'll make it right to sweep it under the fucking rug.
Because they're like, we'll have it set up and everything like that. Don't worry, So
yeah, there's area of business that you can get away with that kind of shit. The buddy system, all that. Yeah. But whenever people's lives are at stake, you can't. Like, honestly, if they're not charged with something for negligent homicide or some sort of manslaughter fucking case, then I think the justice system's doing a disservice. Yeah. Whether fucking Charlie Robinson did it or not, who gives a fuck? The fact that,
did you say Charlie Robinson?
Or what's his name? Charlie Robinson's the singer. Tyler Robinson. I like music. Fuck you.
But yeah, it's just like, now at this point, based off of what, like I said, the guy on Trigger Smart uncovered and what we found out after the fact, once we reviewed what he found and we reached out to our contacts, not to say that the security team had anything to do necessarily with the assassination at hand, but I think that there needs to be an investigation into this team and the overall contract assumption to TPUSA, because the timeline of it, the conflict of the security director and the CEO of Rock House, and both of them coming from Schaefer, being best friends, the everything is extremely, extremely concerning, and to the point of what we still have to go over and what we found out. It does again lead to more questions of, could they have led to having some responsibility for the reason why Charlie is dead? Not that they had a hand in arranging or being a part of the assassination, but for the fact that they had no business being having this company, because they're just simply not qualified to run a company like this based off of what we found. Because like I said, none of this makes sense, because as we went forward, right, and the contract was taken over in late 2022, and they both came.
Hold on, back that up. It would not have been taken over in late 2022. So what would have happened is they would have issued out RFP or RFQ, and then they would have issued it out to X amount of vetted or pre-vetted contractors. Then the contractors would submit a bid for the RFP or the RFQ. They would go through a vetting process, all that good shit, then look at the pricing and say, okay, we can live with this. This is what we need. Then they would do the award. And I'm assuming that then what it would have happened is they would have had a transition phase. So they may have offered or sent out the RFPs or RFQs in, sometime in 2022, and then awarded it 6 months later, and that would have been late 2022, and then they would have given, let's say, 6 months to a year for the execution date of which is a bad word for this whole situation right now, but it's that for the execution date of the contract. And that's where Integrity would have taken over. So they would not have taken over in 2022. They would have taken over.
So I'm reading, I'm going back over Trigger Smart's notes here. Says late 2022, transition to Rock House Integrity Security in 2022. Two key members of Schaefer's team, Dan Flood and Brian Harpole, left Schaefer Security Group and effectively took over TPUSA security contract. Harper launched a new Texas-based firm called Rock House Integrity Group, doing business as Integrity Security Solutions around that time. Schaefer has not been under contract with TPUSA since 2022, and switched to Harpole's company for Charlie Kirk events. Schaefer, by early 2023, Integrity Security Solutions Rock House was the primary security. So the contract was officially awarded in 2022. So what you're probably talking about was already done beforehand. That's what I'm saying. By late 2022, they had already gotten all that done. I know what you're talking about because I deal with that too at work.
No, they couldn't if Rock House wasn't incorporated until May.
I know what you're saying, but that's what I'm telling you, is you have to assume that if they're doing the whole buddy system, since Flood was a security director in February of 2022, there might have been some false paperwork put in to move this along. Maybe, allegedly. That's what I'm saying, though, because this is based off of what the guy in Trigger Smart brought up. That's what I'm telling you.
I don't know, because see, some of it doesn't make fucking sense to me.
Yeah, because a lot of shit in this whole thing doesn't make sense. But why wouldn't this make sense?
Because honestly, the business would have had to been incorporated prior. Then they would have had to, have their whole training regiment. They'd have to have their personnel in place for the whole vetting process.
But see, all it says here is transition to Rock House Integrity Security in 2022. That's what it says right
I
here.
don't know how you could transition to a new company that doesn't exist, because number one, that company can't fucking bill you. They can't submit
Then it
fucking
says
invoices.
by early 2023, which would be, I guess you would consider May, early 2023. Integrity Security Rockhouse was primary security. So maybe that's when they quote unquote officially was all done because they were doing whole transition stuff
Yeah,
in that time
that
frame.
could have been what it was, but still, these fucking dumbasses, man. Number one, it's negligent. It is negligent that they fucking chose a company, switched companies that they can't even fucking vet. Like that's a fucking problem. And beyond that, it's God, man, they're so fucking ridiculous. Like there needs to be a true investigation into this shit. If Turning Point is not complicit in the assassination of Charlie, and they really wanted to get to the bottom of it, and they really wanted effective action against the death of their founder, they would launch an internal investigation. They would file a lawsuit for wrongful death against the Water brothers, like, honestly, because they need to do an internal audit, internal investigation, look at every other company that fucking bid on them at the time. They need to look at what due diligence was done to vet every one of those companies, and honestly look at what the incorporation date of Rockhouse was. Yeah, because it was after the award. You can't fucking do that. You can't. Like, you and I can't fucking get online right now on the government website for bids and contracts and start bidding on a motherfucker, or like on a couple contracts that are high risk contracts where they're going to have to vet us, because they're going to look at it and they're going to be like, oh no, them two dumbasses, they don't even have a company. It doesn't even exist. Like, overlook them, overlook them, overlook
Yeah.
them. Like, what is the company name on the submitted RFP? Like, was it Rockhouse? Was it Integrity? Was it, something different? Like, is that why it's Rockhouse Integrity? Or is it what is the name? Harpole?
Uh-huh.
Harpole, originally intended the company to be called Integrity Security Solutions. And let's say in the meantime, someone else incorporated under that name. So now what he had to do is he had to go back and pick a different name and then do a DBA of it to get to where he needed to where he was, because he had submitted a bullshit bid on the contract under a name that didn't exist. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's what I'm assuming, because I want to know why he's doing a DBA from Rockhouse. Like, why not use Rockhouse name? I want an answer on why'd you do a DBA on a new company? Like, if I was to start a company right now, I wouldn't just do a DBA of something. I would start the company with the name I wanted. And then what I would do is, if I opened up different branches in other places, then I might do DBAs. And I might set them up as franchises or leases or something like that. But he set up his flagship operation with a DBA, and it makes no fucking sense. Don't understand why he would do that.
Yeah. But what one thing that the guy on Truck Smart brought up was the Integrity Security Solutions website, or Rockhouse website, is now gone. So that begs the question: is the company out of business now? Because now, from what you and I have kind of reached out on some contacts, it appears that TPUSA was their only major contract. That was it.
Yeah, that's how it's sounding.
Yeah, and they failed at their one job, protect their detail, and they failed.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
rumors are Nobody wants to touch those guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, why would you want to hire those guys? I mean,
Well, the shitty part about that is, so I'm going to say a couple things. Obviously, their operational planning wasn't done well, in a couple areas and a couple facets.
and that's leadership failure from
Well,
top down.
okay, so I'm going to put it like this: if you're on a military op, is your CO going to be riding with you or in a dangerous situation, or is he going to be back giving commands?
You should be giving commands.
Exactly. Why the fuck is Harpole standing out there in a protective nature? He's not an operator. He is the CEO of that fucking operation, that company. There's no reason he should have been on the front fucking lines. I'm assuming that his insurance on that company would not allow that. There's got to be some information, some clauses in his insurance policy, on his GL policy or whatever, for what he can do and what he can't. Because here's the thing, let's say hypothetically that was a mass casualty event, okay? There's a mass casualty event, and it's not just taking out Charlie, it's taking out the security team, it's taking out, or part of the security team, it's taking out some of the attendees, all that. Why in the fuck are you going to have your CEO in that facet where they're in a high-risk situation? Because now there is no one to pass on that leadership of that company to. And here's the thing, if there's any debt associated with that company, now where's that passed to? Is there just the fucking framework in general, man? Like, you don't fucking do that.
Does Greg go out on fucking security details? Schaefer?
I would assume he does not.
I have no idea.
I don't know. We can reach out to people.
This is the reason why I say that this is a leadership failure from top down, given that, Harpole is, the leader, chief CEO guy. Right. Yeah. Last thing that I want to point out that the Trigger Smart guy brought up was that Dan Flood is no longer on the TPUSA executive page. Now, you could say, well, maybe they just took him off that page. Well, what he did is like anybody else on the executive page, if you search their name in the search bar, you can find their bio that comes up. You search Dan Flood's name, his name, nothing comes up. So now that brings up the question, is he fired or did he resign? You know what I mean? So is this a possibility of him being fired or resigning due to, the massive security failure and the founder and CEO getting assassinated? Don't know.